in Shanghai, Taipei, Beijing, here, city, Seattle, New York. And this office in particular, we have 55 attorneys, and our laser focus is on startups. So we represent all stages of growth, from just a couple guys in a garage, all the way up to companies that are ready to go public. And just as an example, some of the companies that we do work for: Google, Facebook, Craigslist, Phil's Coffee, Intel, TechCrunch, and many, many others. Oh, Box, there's one more that I wanted to mention. Along with startups, we also do a lot with the venture community, so we know a lot of angel investors especially. We also work with accelerators, and we work with venture capital funds. So if anyone, I'm sure that some of you, if you're doing a startup or if you're thinking of investing, you're in the right office. And with that, we'll pass it back to Hive. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us. My name is Pashu. I'm the Marketing and Partnerships Manager for the Hive. I'll say a few words about the Hive think tank. Oh, the clip is not working, sorry. So, here we go. So the Hive think tank is a community of data scientists, practitioners, engineers, designers, artists, all focused on big data. You are part of the community. Thank you for being part of one of the largest data-driven community in the US. We have hosted more than 80 events these past 2 years with over 150 speakers. And these are our upcoming events. So next week we'll have another Tech Talk here at Perkins Square. Then we'll host our first event on the East Bay in Auckland at Pandora. And December 3rd we'll have an event with a speaker from Teradata. We'd like to thank our sponsors tonight. I know there is a few people here from Cloudera. Yeah? Thank you. And of course Perkins Square for hosting us. Also for tonight, make sure to continue the conversation online using the hashtag HiveData. So it's always interesting to have feedbacks and pictures and comments on what we're doing tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Pashu. So just a brief introduction to the Hive. Hive is a studio, so we incubate, we fund, we launch companies in the big data space and focused on applications, use cases in a variety of different segments. Those are some of our companies that range from ad tech, security, e-commerce, Internet of Things, and so on. A number of the entrepreneurs are here today. We are hiring, and so Foghorn is our latest startup, and it's focused on Internet of Things, enabling an application development environment that is sort of on the fog. Fog is the edge and the cloud. There's a whole founding team that we are bringing on board, so would love to chat with you if you're interested. Don't be a stranger, use the hashtag HiveData so people can listen to what you're saying, and follow us on Facebook. So with that, I'd like to get things going for today. I'm pleased to see Svetlana, who was our moderator last week in a different Hadoop event on lineage and cleansing and so forth. And so today we have Elizabeth from Wall Street Journal. So she writes on big data, innovation, privacy, and prior to Wall Street Journal, she was at Bloomberg Business Week. So with that, I'll hand it over to you. Come on over. Yeah.
Thanks so much to the Hive for having me. I cover big data at the Journal, which is a new beat that was created a year ago. Typically, the Wall Street Journal has these company beats, like we have people covering Google full-time and Facebook full-time, And now, like many news organizations, the journal is expanding its footprint in tech, because now tech is touching everything and is part of everything. And so they're boosting their presence, and part of that was they created new beats. And one of them was Big Data, Big Brother. That's literally what it says in my hiring letter, and what that means is I'm supposed to cover all the innovation side of data and also the privacy side. And it's been a year and I never covered technology before. I was covering politics in DC, so I'm still wrapping my head around it. And particularly it's a bit intimidating to be in a room full of engineers, but I always think that that's an opportunity, and whoever I interview, it's a chance to get them to reflect and think bigger than they would otherwise. So thanks for having me.
And so what we'll do is maybe start from that side, give each speaker 5 minutes to introduce themselves, their companies, their point of view about the topic today, which is Hadoop-as-a-Service, and sort of a perspective on whether the market is ready for Hadoop-as-a-Service, and is Hadoop ready to be a service. And so with that, maybe we can start from
So
the
she's got an order there.
Oh, you got an order, Ashu? Oh,
Yeah.
perfect.
Thanks. Will this switch my slides, Ashu?
Yeah, you should.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, thanks. While I'm getting set here with the microphone, let me key off something that Elizabeth said. How many of you in the audience are engineers or consider yourself engineers? Okay, yeah, there are a lot of engineers. How many, raise your hands proudly if you are not an engineer. All right, so maybe 75%, 25. Okay,
So it's 25% less intimidating.
Excellent, excellent. So I'm David Chaikin. I'm the CTO of AltaScale. We proudly call ourselves Hadoop Sherpas because we are a Hadoop-as-a-Service vendor. And one thing I'd like to say from the outset is I have not changed any of these slides for this particular vendor. I took our standard corporate presentation of what is AltaScale and just took about the first 4 slides from the deck, and here we go. So we've been selling Hadoop as a service and building Hadoop as a service since we started. The founding team is not just the folks there from Yahoo, who essentially built the Yahoo strategy at Yahoo and executed it, and also ran up to about 40,000 nodes of Hadoop at Yahoo, but also founders and key personnel from Google and VMware and Netflix and a number of other companies where we had the experience essentially of Hadoop as a service inside the company and wanted to offer that to companies outside of the internet companies that originally built the technology. So the other thing that we saw in our perspective is, yeah, there are lots of companies that are starting to use Hadoop, but it's really hard to get it going. If you're building it on premises, there's a significant CapEx expenditure. The conversation starts with, oh, well, what machines do I need to buy? Or if you're on Amazon, the conversation starts, well, with what instances and spot instances or on-demand or reserved instances and all the way down. And this gets our customers or potential customers fairly far away from, this is how we think we can use new technologies and big data to get a competitive advantage, which is really what we're all about. So that's what we're really formed to do, to make that process of companies getting to the value in their data as soon as possible. So our customers right now are all somewhere between having around 10 terabytes or a few petabytes of data. So that's what I mean by big. And we operate Hadoop for our customers so that our customers can focus on the business value that they want to get out of their data, as opposed to what machines do I need to buy, what instances do I need to buy, what happens when the name node goes down, and on and on and on with all that stuff that those of us in the Hadoop world kind of know and more or less love to do for a living. The other thing that I think is truly different about what we do as Hadoop as a service is we're actually selling Hadoop. So we're selling monthly plans of essentially Yarn containers, which when we started people thought of them as MapReduce slots. But it's containers that are running Spark or Hexadata or Tez or MapReduce or to a certain extent Impala and other products like that. So we sell compute in monthly plans and storage, terabytes of storage, and that's it. So we really try to speak the native terms, at least right now, of Hadoop. Where we're really going with all of this is the way we really talk to our customers is what jobs do you need to run and what kind of programming do you need to do so that you can find the value in their data. So our customers bring their data to us, and then we help with all of that infrastructure stuff and then talk to them about, are your jobs running? Are they efficient? Are you using the programming languages that you'd like to use? Are there other kinds of systems that you'd like to use to analyze your data, all the way from kind of in the weeds of writing MapReduce jobs all the way up through, hey, how can we make it easier to do analytics with Tableau and kind of get to that point where a CFO or a CMO is really doing drag and drop through their business to understand what's going on a day-to-day basis. That's all I had. I hope that was around 5 minutes.
Honestly, just a quick question.
Sure.
For those that might not know in the audience, 10, you said you managed 10, your clients have typically 10?
Our customers are somewhere typically right now between around 10 terabytes and petabyte
And
or some small numbers
for a
of
layperson,
petabytes.
how does that compare to a Google or Facebook or?
Orders of magnitude smaller.
I wasn't making a joke.
But the cool thing about Hadoop as a service is that in aggregate, over all of our customers, we're actually quite large. So our customers get to benefit from the economy of scale that we have, even though they're relatively small compared to a Google or an Amazon or a Netflix or Facebook or something like that.
And can you share what's a relatively small customer? And
so a relatively small customer is
the type of data they would have.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So let's get into a business use case. A relatively small customer is for example, a gaming company that has an app that's just about to go viral, right? It's on that path where suddenly their logs are exploding their databases, and to be able to tell who's using our game, how do we get people engaged in the game, and how do we change the game so that people spend more time on it, and how do we make money from in-app purchases, buying weapons or monsters or plants or whatever you want to buy in your games. I mean, the game companies need to analyze that on a very detailed basis, right? So when a game is just starting to go viral, or when a game company or really any media company builds a product, they tend to say, okay, we'll just start on MySQL, right? But when a game goes viral and it starts running up that curve, the databases that the gaming company starts with, or again, this expands to any media company, just explodes. And it explodes at exactly the wrong time when you're riding up that curve and you're really successful. So that's a good example of the kind of small customer that we have that's on the path to getting really, really, really big.
Great, thank you.
Ross.
Yeah.
It's me?
Yep.
Hi folks, my name is Ashish Thusu. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Cubole. And I'm going to be telling you about this company. Just a company background, this company was founded in 2011. It was founded by myself and Joydeep. We were the guys who created Apache Hive in Facebook back in the day. And we were also the people who built out the analytics infrastructure at Facebook, something which I think it's grown to an exabyte of data today. Back when we left, it was around 150 petabytes, but it still forms the backbone of the of all the analytics workloads, as well as all the data access workloads in Facebook. We are backed by Charleston Ventures and Lightspeed Ventures and based in Mountain View and Bangalore, India. So what is Facebook? What is Qubole? Everybody knows what is Facebook. So Qubole essentially is trying to marry two technologies. Cloud, it brings, when you think about the cloud, what do you first think? You think about agility, you think about on-demandness, you think about an adaptive infrastructure which can adapt to your needs. And Hadoop, there you think about, again, a flexible and a scalable infrastructure for doing large-scale data processing. So we marry these two technologies together to create an infrastructure which is self-service, flexible, adaptable, and can change along with the organization. So what does that mean to an organization? Basically, in a nutshell, it means that it makes organizations agile with data. Your data infrastructure doesn't become a bottleneck for you when you are dealing with data. You don't have to, your data analysts or your data scientists don't have to think about, okay, what do I do with my infrastructure? It can't handle this amount of data, or my infrastructure is all lying waste and I'm not able to use it properly. They can really focus on their data sets and deriving the insights while they leave all the infrastructure needs to Qubole. And Qubole, by bringing the benefits of the cloud to Hadoop, really enables the infrastructure to become that much more agile, flexible, and self-service. So that's what we do. Again, Hadoop as a service, but we place Hadoop in a lot of clouds like AWS and Google Compute, and bring the agility of those clouds to Hadoop to enable organizations to become agile with their data. So the infrastructure doesn't become a bottleneck. That's the primary benefit around Qubole. We achieve this, as I mentioned, by combining the cloud infrastructure and the Hadoop layers together. In addition, once you go towards a vision of this agile infrastructure, which is self-service, which everybody in your organization can use, the second thing that falls around is, okay, what are the tooling that is needed to access this data? And if everybody can access it, what is the governance? How can I control who can see what data? So we provide all that together in a single turnkey stack, all cloud hosted, with the vision that with this platform, you can open up data access around big data to your users, to your data users, whether they be your data analysts, whether they be your engineers, or whether they be your data users embedded in business teams, and just make them that much more agile with data. So those are some of our key features. Today, the service is running at a pretty large scale. We process more than 50 petabytes of data every month. We cycle through around 250,000 virtual machines in the cloud every month. And some of the largest clusters on the cloud are, we run some of the largest clusters on the cloud around, I think, some of the largest that we have run are 1,500 to 2,000 node clusters, that we run on a daily basis for our clients. All this is software managed. We are not employing people behind to manage your Hadoop. It's all built into the platform, and it heavily utilizes the cloud's ability to provision, deprovision machines and things like that to just simplify stuff. It's obviously available wherever there is a cloud. We are today on two clouds, AWS as well as Google Compute, available worldwide in various different regions, and again with the same turnkey abilities. And we have a bunch of clients, a lot of clients in the AdTech space, companies like MediaMath, DataZoo, DataLogix, CubeMogul. These are all companies which process lots of data for campaign management for clients, in AdTech and so on and so forth. We also have clients in social media space like companies like Pinterest, Quora, and Nextdoor, all of which use us heavily for their analytics workloads. So that's a bit about Qubole, and I'll pass the baton to you.
Unless you have questions for him.
No.
All right, great. I don't have any slides, so I don't need this. So about a long time ago, in a land far, far away, actually it was not that long, it was like 5 years ago, and the land was like a couple of miles away. There were four intrepid young men who decided that they had used this really nice data management software called Hadoop in their existing companies, and they were like, what we should do is we should make this available to the masses, we should go and make it available in the cloud, and the best name for a company which is going to sell Hadoop in the cloud is Cloudera. So they started this company Cloudera 5 years ago with the express intent of providing Hadoop on the cloud. About 2 weeks later, they changed their minds because it turned out that in 2009, the cloud was not quite where many of our customers were in terms of adoption. And so there was a fairly radical shift at that time. As Cloudera is the company I work for, and it's one of the more well-known companies in the Hadoop space. They, as I said, they originally planned to create a cloud offering, and that was their business plan. But we were talking earlier about my old company, which had its own business plan to start with this company called VMware, and then pivoted somewhere along the way to do something completely different. Similarly, we decided we needed to focus on the enterprise existing data center base. And we did that. We've been doing that for 5 years. We've been fairly successful at it. In the last couple of years, we've seen a shift in attitudes towards how people consume infrastructure. We've started to see more and more large companies, as well as many small companies, start with a cloud-first approach or consume more of the cloud capabilities in terms of the infrastructure that they use. And so this event happened to be very timely for us because we recently announced our first major foray into the cloud. We've been having customers running on systems like AWS and Azure for a long time now, but we've actually created product in the recent few months which makes self-managing your own cloud experience with Hadoop easy with our distribution. So couldn't be timelier for us, and very happy to be here. I'm Jay Ranganathan. I'm a product manager at Cloudera. I'm responsible for a bunch of our platform components. So among other things, I deal with anything compute related, so Spark and MapReduce and all the sort of well-known things that people are associated with Hadoop for a long time. And I also lead the cloud efforts. And that's what I was going to leave it at.
Great. Just this is a time for a quick survey of the audience. Just if you do not consider yourself very familiar with Hadoop, with what it is, just raise your hand. Okay, so everyone else here considers themselves very familiar with Hadoop, including the history and everything. Okay, then we can skip my question. I am probably the least familiar person with Hadoop in this room, so hopefully my curiosity will lead the way. Okay, go on.
I can borrow that. Good evening, I'm Lance Olson. I'm a partner group program manager at Microsoft, and I'm responsible for Hadoop at Microsoft, and Hadoop, can I borrow your clicker? Thanks. Hadoop in the cloud specifically. And I wanted to take just a few minutes to give a little background on what we do at Microsoft in Azure, and because we've had some pretty big changes go on in the last year at Microsoft and how we think about things as we've really shifted our focus onto the cloud. The first thing is hyperscale. So we have data centers in basically every region of the world, and we are incredibly committed to building out the cloud, and as part of that, building out a big data workload that is available to every person on the planet. We install a new core every 5 seconds, every day, every hour of the year. And so this is a big investment, it's a big commitment for us. We also focus on enterprise level experience, and that's been a journey with Hadoop to provide that. And so we were talking earlier about there are pros and cons to running Hadoop as a service. One fun thing that we get to experience with it is that people can upgrade their clusters in a matter of minutes just by picking the next version. And I came from, before I was focused on Hadoop, I was in the SQL Server business, and we would spend hours and hours and days running playback logs anytime we tuned the query optimizer to ensure that it would never be slower. It would always be either the same or faster with the improvements for any query you could run. And running Hadoop in the cloud, sometimes we get not that experience, and so to say the least. And so it's been a fun journey. We also focus a lot on hybrid, what I mean by hybrid is cases where you're running on the cloud and you have data that's on premises, and I think we'll talk more a bit about some of the use cases for that as we go on, but that is a common case that we also see happening quite a bit. So we launched the service about 12 months ago. Last October is when we launched. In the last 12 months, we've rolled it out in 16 regions worldwide. So every region, but I've got one more, which is Brazil. And I've got to get the problem we have with Brazil is before I launch Hadoop in a region, I have to have a whole bunch of compute available to me because I don't want to turn it on and then have people immediately run out of capacity. So we're still building out data centers there to get enough room to put it into Brazil. I've got a funny story about China. We launched it in China a few months ago, and I was working with the Chinese regulatory board to get Hadoop going in China, and they have a certification that we have to go through, and they said, all right, so it works for Chinese characters, right? And I kind of said, I don't know, has anyone run Hive queries against Chinese characters? And we all ran around and started running Hive queries against Chinese table names and Chinese characters, and it turns out that Hadoop hasn't been localized, you know? And all these guys who invented this stuff, you guys should have used Unicode all over the place, right? So we had to run around trying to localize Hadoop, and of course everything we do, we contribute back into Apache, but we've been busy localizing Hadoop to make it so that you can run it. I know that it can run with any Chinese character now, and people who want to do that.
We knew that Microsoft was going to solve that problem.
Yeah, thank you. I know. Happy to run it, hit my head against the wall.
The issue is Hive, though, not core Hadoop.
There were several issues, but that's been it's been a fun journey. So just to kind of cover some of the things we focus on are it's a broader stack than Hadoop actually. We look at traditional workloads, people running databases right alongside Hadoop, and how do they use them together, and using event systems, and some of those are proprietary and some of those are open source, and how do they make all that stuff work together. And so that is a key thing we focus on. I'm not going to call out all of these pieces, but you know, there are over 30 trillion storage objects that people store in Azure, and it's my job to make it so that all of those storage objects are available for processing in Hadoop, and that people can get the value out of that data with their systems. We focus a lot on being able to just span the data platform, the management, the development scenarios, the authorization, the integration with their Active Directory or whatever identity system they have, and what they might also be running in their own VMs. And I have one last slide I wanted to show, which is gets back to this is the stack that we talk about in Azure. And this might surprise some people that it's not all Windows or Visual Studio or .NET. I have a fond place in my heart for those technologies, but at this point, our goal is really to make the best cloud for people to be able to run their services, and that's why I've led the move to Hadoop and to Linux at Microsoft, and it hasn't always been fun. I've been a little nervous going into some of the exec reviews and talking about how we're rolling out Linux on our services with the guy in charge of Windows sales. But we realize that's where the world's at, and that's what we need to do, and that's what our focus is. And so it's a very exciting, that's what excites me about the job. And then the last thing here is, so this is the service I'm responsible for. This is HD Insight. It's Hadoop-as-a-Service running in Azure. And I won't repeat everything these guys have said. I agree 100%. It's about getting it, making this, the opportunity that I see with services is, it is an opportunity to up-level the way people do big data so that they're not focused on the infrastructure, they're not focused on how many machines or how many nodes or what's the size of the VMs I've got to get. We should be able to optimize that like we've done in other data processing technologies over time. With that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think a couple ideas for how to start. So we'll go, maybe about 40 minutes, something like that, and then I'm going to open it for questions. And I'm sure everyone here has a lot of questions for these guys. So first question is, in my reporting over the last year, a lot of companies, no surprise to anyone here in the audience, have a lot of challenges using Hadoop, whether on-premise or as a service or as a distro. I mean, they have a lot of challenges using it. So what do you think, from acquiring the right talent to process data, to making it go faster sometimes when it needs to go too slowly, to combining the data sets, so what for you is really the biggest challenge right now in the space? I wanted to ask each panelist, so go ahead, David.
So let me pick two at totally different levels. One level is ensuring that when you start out on a project involving any of these technologies, that it's appropriate for your business use case, and you have a line of sight into how are you going to use those technologies to address whatever your need is. So if you're at a credit card company doing fraud analysis, or I talked about a game company trying to analyze what your gamers are doing, or if you're at Walmart and you're trying to recommend one product when someone buys another product, what you need to do is you need to unpack that and understand in this kind of complicated alphabet soup of technologies how you're going to assemble them in a way that that's actually going to hit your business need.
I mean, do you think that the alphabet soup itself is the problem?
We were talking about this before the show, and to a certain extent, it is, and it's very representative of the early days of a marketplace. So databases were certainly like this 25, 30 years ago, where everybody was talking about SQL and relational algebra and so forth. And now you don't hear about it, right? You hear about Salesforce.com, which is applications that are way higher level in the stack, in enterprise resource planning and so forth. So we were talking about, I guess it was the week before last at Strata Hadoop World in New York City, which was, how many people were at Strata in New York City? So a bunch of folks. How about the one in Silicon Valley in the fall? So more people. So our experience is, you walk into the trade show floor and it's this alphabet soup of technologies, and it's almost kind of blinding. And the only people who can make heads or tails of it are the technology enthusiasts, and they're in the IT shops of all of the Fortune 500, Global 2000 companies now. But it's not, the companies aren't out there saying, hey, retailers, we've got Hadoop for you. We've got your recommendation services. Hey, hey, gaming companies, we're lined up to deliver lifetime value for gamers and so forth. And that's where it's got to go. So
that's talking directly to people's needs rather than saying you're another company with another alphabet soup.
Well, okay, I'm kind of a bigot on this, talking about corporate needs and as a proxy for that people's needs. Right now it's very kind of IT-centric.
Okay.
Let me just talk at a totally different level. The other main problem with Hadoop is it's a big old distributed system. And I've been dealing with big old distributed systems for 25 or 30 years now, and it's not getting any easier. The number of programmers on the planet has gone up by a factor of 1,000 or maybe 10,000 since I learned to program. But the number of people who know how to build and run distributed systems like Hadoop has gone up over that same period of time, maybe by a factor of 2 or 3. So there just isn't enough talent on the planet to run Hadoop in every company that wants to run Hadoop. And when I say run it, anybody can set up a Hadoop cluster on a laptop these days. Most of the technology enthusiasts can do it. But if you want it to be efficient and meet your business needs and be secure and reliable and hit everything that the business needs, that's a really hard mountain to climb.
Well, both your points are fascinating. And, the second one, okay, it's a mountain. There just isn't enough talent. It sounds like, from historical experience, that's not likely to change anytime soon.
That's why we're all sitting here. That's why we at AltaScale call ourselves Hadoop Sherpas, right? The Sherpas, we get your Hadoop cluster built, we set up the whole environment for you, we get you up to base camp, and then what we would like to say is we make your job easy, right? The reality with big data is we're not the data scientists who are actually finding the value in the data at all the companies across the planet now. They are extraordinarily smart mathematicians, statisticians. They've got great intuition for the business, but they don't necessarily want to have to program in Java, right? And one of my favorite data scientists says, she says, I was trained as a statistician. She's enormously smart, but she says, I don't know Java, I don't want to have to learn Java, don't give that to me.
Right, and when you don't have to learn it, it opens up the pool of people who can take data mining to the next level.
Right. So what we do as kind of the Sherpas of the business is we get people up to base camp, and then all they have to do is the enormously hard job of kind of climbing up the rest of the way up the mountain.
Okay, guys, what about others on the
So-
challenges?
So actually, this is a good question for me because our CEO recently at Hadoop-as-a-Service made the claim that this is the year that Hadoop is going to disappear. That is really what we see as the future. Large part of the challenge here is that it is a complex distributed system, and complex distributed systems are hard to deal with. You have to understand the intricacies of how you use these things. Part of what we see as the right way to solve this is to work with our partners who actually build tools that use the data in the system. So there's a part of this exercise where end users have to consume the data directly through low-level tools. If you're using MapReduce, you're using a very low-level tool which you really don't want to be doing. That's not helping you solve your business problem.
What do you mean by low level?
So these are things which, as you were talking about, like you need Java skills, for example, to do basic data manipulation. That's not the right level of skill you need to do your job. Your job should not be writing a bunch of Java code to get data into a reasonable format to use in an interesting manner. Now, this space of data management and data manipulation is not new. This has been around for 30 years. There have been many databases in the past, whether it's Teradata or whether it's many of these other systems which have been used to solve the exact same kind of problems. And even in those worlds, they are often interfaced with other tools, say, whether it's a SaaS which provides statistical capabilities, whether it's like Informatica that provides data processing, like ETL pipeline tooling capabilities. There are many front-end systems to these data engines, and what we feel is important is for that tooling to be able to take advantage of Hadoop without having to have each programmer directly access this data through raw programming interfaces. Now, that's certainly not going to solve all the use cases Hadoop can be used for, but for many of our users, that's actually something which should be very powerful for them and will actually help them get value without having to get